Today's topic, which retirement accounts should you be using? I know, it's confusing. There's a 401k, there's a 403b, there's 457bs, there's government 457bs and non-government 457bs. Someone said something about a backdoor Roth. We get it, it's confusing. Don't worry, we're gonna walk through it together. We're gonna cover all the accounts, which accounts you should or could be using, and most importantly, we're gonna also walk through what is your nest egg number? What is a target that you should be aiming for, which is a question that you need to answer, and most don't, but we're gonna at least give you some guidelines to work on that today. So stay tuned, that's all coming up next. The nest egg. How much are you saving for your retirement? It's a simple question. Sounds like a question we should all know, right? But most don't. Likely, if you're not working with a financial planner, or if you haven't built your own financial plan on your own, which you can easily do, you probably have never even really thought through this, right? How much do I need to retire? Now, I always put the disclosure in there that when we build a plan for a client, it takes at least 2 months, sometimes longer. We collect a lot of data to the point where sometimes new clients will actually get angry on how many times we are asking for documents, because I always say good data in equals good data out. But in the most simple form, and usually the form I'll use when I'm presenting to different physician groups and different conferences, is the 30X rule. And the 30X rule is this. It says that your goal is to have 30 times your desired annual spending. So for example, you're getting ready to retire, you sit down, you say, how much do I want to spend in retirement? Say, I want 100 grand. I want 100 grand per year. It's going to cover my expenses. I got to pay Uncle Sam. I got health insurance in there. You have this number, it's 100,000. Maybe that number's high, maybe that number's low. That doesn't matter for the point of this YouTube video. It's just giving you the calculation. So if you take 100,000, you use my 30X rule, which is not my rule. Someone else way smarter than me thought of this. And it kind of almost goes back to like the 4% rule. If you ever heard of the 4% rule, it's a little bit in that same idea, but we're just going to use a multiple as opposed to that 4% rule. So at 100,000 times 30, what number do you get? You got it right, 3 million. So in that example, if you're sitting there and you say, hey, I want to spend $1 million per year would be nice, but $100,000 per year in retirement, and I say you need at least 30 times that when you retire, your target is 3 million. So let's start there. You now at least have a target. So if you're taking notes at home, now we're going to start to work through what accounts you could be using as well. So we have our target. Now let's start putting some marks on that target by working through some of these accounts. All right, first up in the alphabet soup, 2 of the most common ones. I'm gonna link these together because they pretty much play together. You got your 401k, you got your 403b. These two work together because the current limits are, if you're under the age of 50, is $22,500. So at $22,500, you only have that amount to contribute to these accounts. Now, most of the time, you're only going to have access to one. You're either going to have a 403b or 401k. To our people, the physician community, I usually describe it this way. If you're working in academic medicine, you're likely going to see a 403b. If you're more private practice, you're likely going to see a 401k. They're very similar. So that's the first spot you're going to aim for. What we've seen over the years too, you now have Roth options in here. Now, if you're a high income earner, I would say just do some math before you just kind of dive into the Roth. Roth sounds fantastic, but you're likely in your higher tax years right now. So just kind of proceed with caution there. We're going to get to this a little bit later in the video, but the backdoor Roth is kind of a good in-between. So check to see if they have a Roth option, see if they have a pre-tax option. Learn your investment options, right? This is one of the biggest issues we see in all these qualified plans that we're going to walk through. But in particular, you want to make sure that you're watching what's called the expense ratio. Look for something called index funds when you can. Usually most of the 401k providers will give you access to someone to call in and kind of walk you through these options. They might not be able to tell you exactly how to invest per se, but they can walk you through the pros and cons. But just be aware of that. 401ks, 403bs have come a long way in getting those fees dramatically lower, but we still do see some higher priced funds every now and then. So just be on the lookout for that. And another slam dunk in this category is, at a minimum, you're trying to always get your employer match. In a perfect world, again, speaking to our physicians, I'm realizing that more than physicians will just watch our videos, but to our physician community, high income earners in particular, I don't like blanket statements, but you should be able to max out your 401k or 403b without much issue. But if you are kind of working through some other things, maybe you're paying off student loans, maybe you're paying off some debt, maybe you're saving for some other personal goals, at a minimum, always get your match. So for example, you read through the HR guidelines on the 401k plan, it says, hey, you got to put in 6% of your salary to get 100% match on the next 6%. Now that's a pretty nice match, but in this example, make sure you're putting in at least 6% of your salary to get that free money from your employer. And we always call that employer money free money because let's just say you don't put into the 401k, you miss out on that 6%. Another thing in this section here, as you're getting that match, make sure you understand the vest schedule. Sometimes we'll miss this one and someone will go to change employers and they can't figure out why their 401k balance was much lower when they maybe moved it to their new employer plan. You got to keep an eye on that vesting schedule. Sometimes it's a 3-year cliff, sometimes it's a 5-year, 20% each year. There's a lot of different ways you can build a vest schedule, but keep an eye on those. And a lot of the topics that I'm covering in this section in particular, they're also going to apply to the other accounts as well. But your 401k, your 403b are the most popular. You should be aiming to at least get your full match here, if not fill up this bucket completely. So stop one on alphabet soup is our 401k and the 403b. Next up, the HSA, the health savings account. I bet you did not think that was coming up second on this list. The reason why I like to put it second though is because this is actually probably one of the most readily available retirement accounts that come up next. Now you're probably thinking, how are you telling me my HSA is a retirement account? Well, let me tell you why. So the HSA is one of the only accounts out there that gives you this triple tax benefit, meaning tax deduction going in, tax deferred while it's in there, tax free if you use it for qualified health expenses when you pull the money out. So that's why we really like this account, and they're continuing to become more and more popular because employers are trying to push some of that cost over to you. So by you having this high deductible health plan usually means your premiums are going to be a little bit higher, but you then get this HSA on the backside. One caveat, make sure you always confirm your high deductible health plan is HSA eligible. Most of the time it is, but every now and then if you buy one off the exchange, it will not be because they don't know how to process what credits you're getting. So maybe it looks like it's HSA eligible, but it's not because of how they utilize some of the credits through the healthcare exchange. So again, not all that common, but just double check. Won't hurt to double check. So here's why we love that HSA though. So again, tax deduction going in, tax deferred while it's in there. But now, while it's tax deferred, a lot of these HSAs now offer investing. So you can actually put the money in there, get it invested, let it grow, let it compound. Remember that compounding interest? And then when you take it out, it's going to be pulled out completely tax-free for qualified health expenses, which I'm going to note another caveat there in a second. So that is why we really like this HSA. It's becoming more and more readily available, especially the investment options. Now, another unique thing in there is what we call the stealth IRA. And what this says is after age 65, so 65, you can pull the money out and use it for anything, but you got to pay ordinary income tax on it. But why is this not a big deal? Well, if you actually look at the definition of an IRA, a regular IRA, not a Roth, a regular IRA, that's all it is, right? Tax deduction coming in over to you. So by you having this high deductible health plan, usually means your premiums will be a little bit higher. So even after age 65, you can use it on other things. Now, in a perfect world, unfortunately, right, as we get older, we know our medical costs are going to go up, and that's where the HSA is going to be really powerful. Some other things to keep in mind here is, in a perfect world, if you're following this strategy, when health bills do come up, the goal is to pay them out of pocket. So for some, you might say, well, that doesn't seem right, but you're trying to allow your HSA funds to compound interest, grow through that compound interest, and then utilize a larger number in retirement. Now, I realize life can come at you fast, so maybe you do need to dip into it here or there, but in a perfect world, you're going to fund it, invest it, let it grow for the long term, and then utilize those funds later in our retirement years is when we're going to really look at that. So that's the HSA. It's a great retirement tool. It's one that is starting to get more popular as a retirement tool, but still needs some better, announcements on why that can be beneficial. So check out the HSA, see if you have an HSA available, but the health savings account is a great retirement account when used appropriately in that retirement fashion. The 457B plan, one of my favorite accounts and really one of our best performing topics on YouTube. So maybe you found us already through a 457B video. Here's the key thing to remember with a 457B. There's two different types. There is a government 457B plan and a non-government 457B plan. Why does this matter? Well, it matters quite a bit. Government 457B plan, think of it as a bonus 403B. There's really no downside to it. If you were looking for more pre-tax savings and you're trying to lower your taxable income and build up your long-term retirement savings, the 457B plan on the government side, which in academic medicine, that's usually what you're gonna see there, but always confirm. And sometimes you'll have like a for-profit hospital, but because you're teaching on the other side, they'll then give you the educational side, which will then give you that government 457B plan versus the non-government. So always read that fine print. On the other side, non-government 457B plan, you're thinking, it can't be that bad, Chad. What could go wrong here? Well, you could just lose all your money. So it could go horribly wrong. And here's why. Essentially, in that 457B plan, non-government, it's not your money. It's sitting in an account owned by the company. So if the company goes bankrupt, what happens? the creditors are likely going to get to that money before you. Let me rephrase it. They're going to get to that money before you do. So that's why you got to be very careful. And another thing that we keep an eye on, this is starting to get better, is what are the withdrawal rules? So let's say you put in 100 grand into this non-government 457B plan, but now you change hospitals. And we're at this point where we're thinking, okay, well, they just sent me this letter that I have this 457B plan and my options were this. There were no options. I got to pull all the money out by next April. That can happen. There's 457B plans that have that wording that say you got to pull everything out in a very short period of time. And why is this? Could this possibly be devastating? Well, if you're still working, you're going to still have high income, and then you got to pull out, let's just stick with our 100 grand number, you got to pull out another 100 grand. You're going to get taxed like crazy on that. So what you're looking for is more flexible withdrawal options. And this again continues to get better, but you want to look for one that says, hey, I can start withdrawals at age 65, spread them out over 5 years or 10 years. You're looking for flexibility in there. So even before you get started in your 457B plan on the non-government side, you want to see what the withdrawal options are. That's probably your easiest one to check. It's probably going to be pretty tough to see, like, are they going to go bankrupt? Sometimes the writing's on the wall, sometimes it's not. But if you find out, they're going under, take the tax hit, pull all your money out and run to the hills. But again, I think it's sometimes hard to know that. But the 457B plan is a fantastic account, but just know the difference between your government and non-government 457B plan. The other nice thing about the 457B plan, I'd actually say it's probably one of its best benefits, is it sits on its own separate island. So if you're maxing out the 401k or 403b, because remember, those two work together, you can still get another $22,500 using this current tax year's numbers. That number will update. So if you're watching this and it's no longer the year 2023, just see what the current numbers are for that given year. But you can put another $22,500 into that account again. So you could be putting $22,500 into your 401k or 403b, and then another $22,500 into your 457b plan. That's why it's a neat tool. Could be a bonus 403b plan, or if it is a non-government plan, just make sure you read the fine print. But check out the 457b plan, at least see if you have the option there, and then it could be a nice one to add to your overall account portfolio. Next up, one of my favorite topics, if not my favorite topic, the Backdoor Roth IRA. So who does this apply to? Well, if you thought your income was too high to save directly to the Roth IRA, I got good news for you, my friend. You can do it. And here's how you do it. Takes a few steps, but it is doable. First thing you should check, one of the number one things we see messed up with these is you can't have any other IRA balances. So I'm specifically looking at you, SEP IRA, you, Simple IRA, and obviously any other traditional IRAs. Those three accounts are going to blow up this party if you do not get rid of those. And simple ways to get them cleaned up is you can move a SEP IRA into your current 401k plan. If you have 1099 income, because you already had a SEP IRA, you can roll it into something called a solo K. Same thing with Simple IRAs, same things with IRAs. Your current 401k provider loves you consolidating accounts in there because they get paid more. So you can easily get these consolidated, but this is one thing you need to do first. You got to make sure you clean up what I call your IRA basis. You don't want to have any IRA balances going into this. Assuming you got a clean slate, here's what we do next. You can make a $6,000 non-deductible. $6,000 is the 2023 number. Remember, check the current year. 2023, $6,000. So $6,000 into your IRA. This is what we call a non-deductible contribution. Now, there's some people that say you can convert it that same day. Some will say wait a little bit. Some will say wait a few days. We're kind of in the middle there. We say wait a few days. There's something in there called the step doctrine, where you're trying to prove to the IRS that this was not an attempted way to get money into the Backdoor Roth IRA. So that's why we just add a few days in there. So what you're doing here is, again, funds into the IRA, let those funds settle, then convert it over to your Roth. Once it gets into the Roth, get it invested. That's all it is. That's your Backdoor Roth IRA. And you really want to set this up on repeat year in and year out. I could actually list the Backdoor Roth IRA probably right underneath your 401k, 403b. We are doing this on repeat every single year for all of our physicians that are still working. This is essentially a done deal. Every January, I think I sent it out on the 3rd, send out an email to all of our clients, and we start this process. That's how much we really want to get funds into the Backdoor Roth. And the reason why we love the Backdoor Roth so much is because it doesn't waste any pre-tax dollars. Remember what I said earlier, you have very high income. You're getting taxed at a high rate. We want to do our best to take advantage of all those dollars first. Backdoor Roth allows us to get money into the Roth, but we didn't waste any pre-tax dollars. So Backdoor Roth, if it's the first time you heard of it, dig some more into it, do a few searches on YouTube or some Google searches, but it is a fantastic way to build up your after-tax dollars, which is the beauty of the Roth, while still keeping all your pre-tax options open for you. So the Backdoor Roth IRA, one of my beloved, if not my most beloved and cherished account. So make sure you're checking out that Backdoor Roth IRA for your retirement planning. Last but not least, the utility player, your taxable account. This is usually in the form of something called an individual account, could be a joint account with your spouse, significant other. If you live in one of the 18 states that allows something called tenants by the entirety, make sure your joint account with your spouse is labeled as tenants by the entirety. Pretty much free asset protection without any fancy planning. So just keep that in mind. That is one I'm still amazed by how many times that is missed, especially in the physician community, because I know you all love asset protection. So it's one of those slam dunks, easy ones. If you already have a joint account, it's okay. You don't have to open up a new account. Usually just contact your custodian and they can get that updated, usually a form and a signature, and you're good to go. But the taxable account, remember, in a taxable account, the premise is this. You're going to put in after-tax dollars. Ideally, you get them invested and they grow, right? So money has gone up and now you're in a spot where, let's just say, you need to pull some money out. The beauty of these accounts is they're taxed at a preferred lower capital gains rate. It's advertised as 15%. I can tell you for high income professionals, that number can get the whole way up to about 24%. 20%, it becomes a base. So there's two capital gains rates currently, again, 2023, 15 and 20%. But when you add in some other layers in there, it can easily get up to just about 24%. So the key there is those are all labeled as long-term capital gains. How do you get long-term capital gains? You got to make sure you held the position for at least 1 year and 1 day. Don't miss that 1 day, 1 year and 1 day. Anything less than that, short-term capital gains. Why don't we like that? Well, it's taxed at your ordinary income tax rate, which is likely going to be much higher than those preferred capital gains rates. So in this example, you get money in there, it's invested, and then on the other side of it is where you're going to end up paying taxes in the form of capital gains. This is an account where you're going to look to, at least how we build it out. There's a million ways to do this, but this is usually an account that we're looking for a little bit more conservative allocation because it is accessible. I know when you're talking about asset location planning, that might not work out perfectly, but this is a good place to utilize ETFs, which are very tax efficient. This is a good place to start to sprinkle in maybe something called municipal bonds, which will keep the account tax efficient. So there's a lot of ways to build these. I'm not here in any of these YouTube videos to tell you how to build out your allocations, but just some things to keep in mind. But the beauty of that taxable account is it's your utility player. There's no rules on how much you can put into it. There's no rules on how much you can take out of it. And that's why we really like this account, especially if you're going for, I would say, two things: early financial independence, or if you need to live a fancy life of private jets, yachts, and caviar in retirement, you're going to be loading up this account. And I say that because the 401k, the Backdoor Roth, even if they give you a 457B plan, they can only get you so far. So that's why this taxable account will become very popular. And over time, for a lot of our physicians, it actually becomes their largest account because, again, there's no limits on how much we can get in there. Where if the 401k is limited at $22,500, we can go and put $100,000 in this account, $200,000 in this account. So taxable account, think of that as your utility player. We also have some other videos out there that we note on building these even more tax efficiently, because that's the one thing you got to keep an eye on. You just want to keep it tax efficient. There's also some neat strategies you can use in there, but there you have it. That would be where we would end, kind of walking through, at least at a high level. There are fancier ways to get into it, especially if you're a business owner, you have a lot of 1099 income, but these accounts should cover the bulk of your options for like 99% of the population. So hopefully that was helpful. Check out all those accounts, see which ones you have access to, see which ones you're using, and then build from there, my friend. And there you have it, the alphabet soup of retirement accounts, how much you should have in your nest egg, and how you can kind of layer these all together. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it took away some of the scariness that comes with all these different accounts. And hopefully you learned a thing or two. Most importantly, thanks for hanging out with me for the last 15 minutes or so. If you have not subscribed to our channel, now would be a good time to subscribe. Click on the little bell icon. You also get notified every time we release a new video. Thank you again for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you on the next video.